Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. Today, I would like to discuss, and this is more of a discussion. This is more of a kind of a, hey, look what I've been kind of playing with and trying to implement, and it's something I'm late jumping on the wagon for, I guess you'd say, and that is responsive typography or responsive type sizing, maybe, or like fluid type. Yeah, that's so. This is what I'm using. This welcome to Utopia. Um, so I've seen lots of designers and videos. I've tried to read articles, and the idea is that we have responsive design. We have media queries where we can change things based on the viewport width and height. Um, well, what if all that were flexible? So you could have the font size, and I say what if as if, again, I'm late to this game, but this is a thing you can use. The clamp function is the latest hotness as far as creating a minimum size and a maximum size, and then have this elasticity in between so that as the viewport grows or shrinks, the font sizing will, slightly adjust accordingly. One of the reasons I was hesitant to get on this is I'm a throwback from the old days, and I can remember when we had low res screens and type hinting was a thing, and I had to look this up and kind of remind myself. This is from 2010. This is Peter Bilek. I'm probably butchering that, and I'm really sorry. Awesome type founder, been around for a while. Type of again, I think that's how you say it. But the idea was that fonts used to be somewhat pixelated, and they would type designers would have to manually go in and provide hinting to help it to align with the pixel grid. So you wouldn't end up with crazy stuff like this, where it's unhinted, and then this, where it is hinted. So you get a better read on it at small sizes because it would be really pixelated. Well, now we have retina displays and super high resolution screens, and we don't have to worry about that as much. But I have read articles in my search for this where it is still a thing. There are people that don't have higher resolution screens necessarily. My second monitor, for example, is kind of a low res screen, whereas my laptop, the one that I'm looking at now, is a high res touchscreen. So I don't know. So anyway, I'm jumping on this wagon. I feel like it's time that I get familiar with this and play with it. So I began by working it into my own website. I set up a staging server or staging site and tinkered with it, and I just pushed it out. So there might be some slight differences between what it was prior to this, because I was using, I think, rims for font sizing, and had my breakpoints set up to adjust accordingly depending on what the size of the screen was. And now it's more flexible, and there was a little, well, not a little, there was a good bit of adjusting, and I don't even know if it's visible. Yeah, I guess it is, ever so slightly, until it hits that minimum size. And the headline, since I wanted these big, gigantic 80s tight kerning headlines, I did have to play with that some. So whereas these fonts or these type sizes, there are no media queries. It's simply using clamp and that maximum size, minimum size, and then you get all that in between. I did the headline, the big H1 headline font is using the clamp function, but I had to use 3 different sizes for the breakpoint so that it would work better. So because I still want that big appearance, but on smaller screens, it's got to be a good bit smaller. Otherwise, the words will begin to break in funny places. So I thought I'd kind of share my process and what I kind of played with and the way I've set it up. So first of all, I looked for one of these calculators. I wanted one to do it for me because math is wizardry. Like I have read, there is a blog article on how they calculate this stuff, and this is brought to us by the people at Clear Left. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with them. So this agency is in England, in where Brighton, okay, United Kingdom, and they have some old school heroes of mine, Jeremy Keefe of JavaScript fame. Let's see, who else we got? Richard Rudder. Who else? I mean, and this is not discounting any of these other people. Just these are the ones that I'm familiar with from way back in the day. Podcast episodes. I don't know. Does anyone remember Boag World? That was like mid 2000s. It was him. He was a funny guy. Him and another guy, another British. I think the British firm, British podcast, but it was a lot of fun to listen to. Their stories and development, design, all kinds of things, and I miss that stuff. I need to look those guys up. Anyway, so they created this tool to generate these fluid type scales for you. And again, you might have seen this. You can do augmented fourth and minor second. So it's all based on musical scales. And this was first introduced to me through The Elements of Typographic Style, a book by Robert Bringhurst. And it was kind of it may still be the typographic Bible for designers. And it was more based around book typography. Probably that was the impression I got, but you certainly carry it over in other things. And some people did very literally, because he introduced all these page proportions and text block proportions and the font sizing. You don't just go at it willy-nilly. I mean, certainly some of it is still done by what looks right, but you can certainly begin with these scales that are based on music, and it's based on the intervals between notes within a scale, and they've just applied it to type through math, through wizardry. And I think this is the one that I used. Actually, I put in the width of my viewport, which I think mine is 1280, and I think I did. Oh, I can show you. So this is my child theme. You can set this up however you like. I think you can use a code editor plugin and introduce. This was the big one. So I introduced a new CSS file called settings, and it has all of my properties. And you can see they provide you with a link because it's really hard to adjust these, or pretty much impossible to adjust these just manually. Jump in here and go, oh, well, I want to make this a little bit bigger. You really need to go back to the, I think I can just click it and open that bad boy up. Yeah, so that's it. So yeah, 1280, I did the major third for the larger size, and the smaller size, I did the minor third for those increments. A minimum of font size of 18, maximum of 21. And this was actually for my child theme, which I've been kind of revamping. This is the demo site for it. This is the site that I duplicate or replicate whenever I start working on a client project. And I'm trying to put in a lot of the stuff that I typically use. And I'm trying my best to use the global styles provided by GenerateBlocks, just to save myself some time. Use their nomenclature, but style them the way I like them. so that I can reuse it. Um, anyway, this is all in progress. This is me trying things out. So take this all with a grain of salt. So anyway, one of the beautiful things about this is they not only give you your type scale and you can add to it. So you see, here's the default, and it goes up to a 5th step, which is the larger, and down to a -2 step, which is smaller. Here's the 0 is your baseline, your standard font size. I can close these out now. Where I added 6 and 7 because I wanted the bigger font sizes available to me, and I kept the rest. But what they also did is they give us responsive spacing, so fluid spaces, and it's based on the font sizing that you pick up. So you get these spaces, these yes, padding, margin, whatever you want to apply it to, that is responsive. And again, you can add to it, you can remove from it if you want another larger size, you can just add one, and it gives you a name for it. And these space value pairs, like I'm still getting my head around a lot of it. So this is more of a everything in between. This is look at it yourself. Again, I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of it and put it to good use. Custom steps. Yeah, see, I don't know. I guess maybe this one is one that's not based on the scale. I don't know. But they give you all of the custom properties in this nice link, so you can come back to it, make edits, and then you can copy and go back to whatever your file is, like I have here, and you can paste it in. So there is a method of maintenance as long as they keep this site up. But they are kind enough to, and I'm not going to show you in one of the blog posts, they share how they arrive at all these values and the calculations. So if you feel so inclined, you can build something out of PHP or JavaScript and have at it yourself. And you also get, in addition to the type and the space, they give you these grid settings for the container width, gutters, things like that. I did not use this because I'm using GenerateBlocks, but I did pull the grid gutter. I believe I did. I may have pulled something else too. Yeah, the max width, but I'm not using that. I'm using what's in GeneratePress, which I guess you could. No, I think it's fixed in pixels. But anyway, I did use this grid gutter value to set the gutters within all my grids, any Flexbox stuff. Just kind of playing with it. But there's no reason you couldn't use one of these space properties to add your grid. So anyway, I hope that's making sense. This is where I pulled all of these values from. Clamp that is okay. Yeah, I just pulled from the type, space, and grid stuff, mainly the type and the space, and included them in this settings.css file. And what I've done, so here's my functions file. So again, you have to include it somewhere. So I've on-queued it here, and that is to the front end, but also where I've set up my there it is, my Gutenberg, my block editor assets. I've also on-queued it here so that those values will take effect when I'm editing in the block editor. Okay, follow me so far. So then I can refer to all these values. And I don't think I have anywhere in here. But let's just say I wanted a standard margin of 1. I might say margin top variable step. Let's see, that was 1. So I might say step 1. No, not step 1. Sorry, that's the font sizing. Space. Maybe space small. Okay. And that gives me a utility class that I can apply to things. And it's using that fluid spacing property. Save that. And now, before I go to block styles, which is another file introduced, let's look at the back end. So I set up some test pages. So here is, just a long running passage. And just to show you something else, I started setting up a container that has something to do with, like, this is a wrapper for a long passage of text, because I don't want it. If you look up any studies on setting type for longer reading, you want, there's kind of this ideal line width, so that it's not going all the way across the page. You don't have to like turn your head as you're reading each line, so your eyes can scan it more easily. Haven't looked into this officially, but if you're reading magazines or newspapers, you'll notice they have shorter column widths, I think, for better scannability. You can read it quickly. But if you're reading a book, a novel, or to sit down and read a book, it's going to have a wider text block, so that you can settle in and read, but it's going to be a little bit longer, but still the column is short enough so your eyes are comfortable. Again, you're not having to turn your head. You can just scan the text as you're reading, and you have ample white space around it so that there's no visual noise. You have plenty of buffer. So there's that. And I'm using it, or setting it up rather, with this CH property, which I've tried to, value unit, whatever you want to call it. What it does, some people refer to it as character width, and I've tried to look up what exactly CH stands for, and I can't find it. It may just be short for character. It is equivalent to the width of a 0 in whatever font is applied. In this case, I think it's inheriting the body font, which in this case is Libre Franklin Gothic, one of my favorites. So you can set up your width that way, so it's actually not pulling from anything arbitrary or just willy-nilly. It's looking at the font itself, how big it is, and it's adjusting based on something relative to the font itself. So it feels like a better strategy to setting up your column width, and I'm trying it out. Just saying. Okay, let's jump over here to the customizer. All right, let's pull up this and go to typography. Okay, and another thing, one of my previous videos, I did 2 videos, because the first one I did, I kind of over-engineered a technique that would automatically generate like styles for headings that you set up in GeneratePress. And so in case you don't know what those are, let's say you're setting a heading level 3 to make it semantic and in the proper flow of your hierarchy of content. But you want it to be bigger. You want it to look like a heading level 2 just for the design. If you have a like style, you can take a heading level 3 and apply this like style, which you can see right here is style like H2. Apply that to it, and it will make it appear visually as heading level 2. So it's a utility class, pretty much. Then I did a second video after it was pointed out to me in the GeneratePress Facebook group that you can just use these custom target elements and make your own. And so that is probably the way I'm going to go about doing it. That's the way I've done it here. I think on my site, I left it the way it was with the fancy auto generation, but I may change it later. So you can see here what the font sizing looks like. You just put in this custom property, and I don't change it. Now, line height, I also set up this page so I could kind of really tinker with. I wanted to see what the heading size was relative to the body copy size for each of the headings on a single line, and then it also did when it wraps to 2 lines. So the line height is still a visual thing. I'm just tweaking it until I get what I want. Same with letter spacing and even the bottom margin. And I'm using M's so that it is relative to the size of the font. And if you go down even further, I start stacking it. And so now I have, again, the 1 line, then 2 lines, because I want to see visually how it relates to the block of body text beneath it. And I probably should go further and have like an H2 underneath an H1 and then an H3 underneath an H2, so on and so forth, to see how that stacks up, because it might not do right. It might need some tweaking. But every one of them is like that. It has this variable property of this fluid type for the size, and then I tweak the line height, the letter spacing, the bottom margin, all manually, till I get kind of this vertical rhythm that I want. And there are ways, people that go really hardcore, that set up solid vertical rhythms so that if you were to, in the background, place a grid of lines, a baseline grid, as you know, if you've ever used InDesign, you can enable that, and everything would line up. And I'm not going there yet. Baby steps, taking it a step at a time. Right now, I'm still just going the visual route, tweaking it till I get it the way I prefer it. So I may hit that down the road. So now to look at my site, because there's one little tweak that I had to make to get it. So if you're using 2 different fonts, if you're using one font, you're all good. So here it's all kind of set up. Even if we go over to the components, and these are dropped in from the pre-built components from GenerateBlocks. I just wanted to see how it would work, and so far so good. This is all using those fluid font sizes and the spacing as well. So if I look at this, and where's my grid? Yeah. So you can see the row gap is this space 1, but the column gap where the gutter is, I've used this grid gutter. And if we, so right now, we'll see what is the value. 42 pixels. So if I were to adjust things just a little bit, not all the way. Then we look at it. Now it's 37.23 pixels. So it's adjusting even, at this width. So I'm liking this. It's saving me some thought, some brain power. If I can just trust the process and trust that these values are going to make things visually nice, acceptable, pleasing, whatever you want to say, I'm happy to go down this road. So here's my typography here. So here I'm still using the heading 1, but for example, if I go to the About page, I do have this variable step 5, but if I go down a step, oh no, I'm sorry, that is a class. That's a global style that I'm using for those big headlines. So I'll go back to that. What was my little, okay. So here, if you're using, say, a bold sans serif font along with a light serif font, the bold may visually, even if they're the same point size, or I say point size, that's a leftover from print, same size, it may appear slightly larger visually. So what I've always done is take these bold headings that I want to appear visually the same size as the text they're appearing with. I will make them slightly smaller. And what I decided to do was keep the step property that has my fluid size in it, and just wrap it in a calc function and just say minus 0.1 rem, or tweak it until I get it to where I want it. And if I were to edit this, so keep your eye on this. You could say I have a plethora of experience, and it should get a little bit bigger. Okay, to me, to my eye, it was just a little bit, just a hair too big. And so I made the adjustment of removing just 0.1 rem from that, just shaving it off from that fluid size. So no matter what it is, it's always going to reduce it by that 0.1 rem. It gets it down to where it's more pleasing to my eye, and I'm satisfied with that. So I was worried about that at first, but then I had figured that out to calm my nerves a bit. So yeah, so that's what I ended up doing, using that calc function. And from what I've read, I was kind of worried about all these calculations being, browser intensive and causing performance problems. But from what I've read and what I've experienced, that it's really not an issue. These are lightweight things that aren't really taking up processes, or however you want to say that. So that has been my adventure thus far. I realize this is probably a very boring video, but it was a big step for me. And I've pretty much applied this to everything in my child theme. And I'm just now working on a client site with this whole new setup. I'm happy so far. No big issues. Everything's rocking along. And I look forward to working this way with my type. I love typography. I think it's one of the most important parts of any design, because we're all reading on the web, and it can have such a visual impact based on the fonts you choose, the fonts you choose, the sizes that you incorporate. It's all about contrast. It's all about the style that it communicates. I don't know. It can just be a lot of fun, and it's something you're gonna have to work with anyway. So you might as well take advantage of that and use it as much as possible. So yeah, I'm trying to think, have I missed anything? Is there anything else that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to show? Because we're at 30 minutes just about, and I think I've covered everything I want to cover. This is using that fluid spacing too, and I love it so far. Oh, one more thing I did want to share. So the containers are also using the spacing. Wait a minute. So that's that minus. That's margin. Okay, let me jump in here, and I'm going to find something to show you. So the very last thing I wanted to share, and it has to do with the this part. So we've all set up sections, or these wrapper containers. Where components? And we've all had to apply padding. Okay, so this is the default, the default class name. I've changed it. So I'm sure you've seen where, or here, let's just drop in a new one. You can open the pattern library. You can go to your pro, if you're a GenerateBlocks pro, and say like a Oh, what do I want to pull in? Why have I got to get hung up here? So here's no. I do. Well, yeah, we'll drop in a gallery, whatever. Okay, so we have a gallery. It is a section, and it's using this GBP section style. So the way I have it set up now, if I go here and I look at spacing, I'm using these custom properties to set this fluid spacing at the top and bottom. And I'm one of those guys that likes my the inner container to have the padding on either side. I'm still using pixels for that because GenerateBlocks does on the heading and things like that. I'm working on it, again, work in progress. But yeah, this was kind of cool because where is that? Okay, section. There we go. So GBP section, and here we have this variable space. So right now it's 84 pixels, and if I were to reduce it, you can see it ever so slightly reducing in size. So that's at 75. So you still get that relative kind of spacing, but as your screen gets smaller, you don't need it to be as big. You want it to get a little smaller. And this may be more where, is that my space? Yeah, this stuff comes into play. In fact, I bet it is. Let's just, real quick. Yeah, because we're always doing that. We're always real quick, aren't we? So what do we got? Space. Yep. Okay, that's space 2XL. What do we got? 2XL to 3XL? 1XL to... Let's try that. And see what happens. Whoa, what a... Oh, duh. I didn't wrap it in the right... XL to 2XL. Okay, let's see. I wonder now if the change will be more dramatic. That would make sense to me. Yeah, I think it is. Okay, so now it is back to 84. Yeah, 57. So, okay, so it's more dramatic. Okay, I get it. So it's a bigger range in between the two, the min max. Okay. I might like that better. So, yeah, always be playing, always be learning. There is so much to learn. And I kind of griped about that maybe in my last video, maybe 2 videos before, about the imposter syndrome and always feeling like I'm behind and not knowing stuff. You know what? That is the beauty of what we do. That is one of the best things about what we do, is there's always something to learn. There's always something to improve on. And that's why we need to be in the community and talking to each other and sharing and taking advice, taking inspiration, getting inspiration. Yeah. So I'll stop there. Please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And I appreciate you guys watching. And leave me some comments. Let me know if you guys have tried this. Are you struggling with it? Are you acing it and loving it? Yeah, let me know. Y'all have a great Friday. Have a great weekend.